the goal is always to get to yes, right? Well, what if I told you the most powerful word in the room isn't yes at all? It's actually the exact opposite. Today, we're going to dig into why learning how to say no can absolutely change the game for you.
So to get into this, I want you to meet someone. This is Burr, a super friendly car salesman. And these numbers you're looking at, that's kind of like his entire life's report card in negotiation. Look at that towering yes bar. Almost 57,000 times he said yes. Now, look at that tiny little no bar. Yeah, and that right there is the heart of his problem.
See, the thing about Buzz is he was raised by his sweet Auntie Fi to be a complete gentleman. You know the type, always polite, always accommodating. So for him, saying no just felt wrong. It felt rude. And because of that, he grew up to be this incredibly agreeable person who just compromised on pretty much everything all the time.
So we're going to follow Boo on this incredible journey, watching him go from being a total people pleaser to a seriously skilled negotiator. We'll break it down into 6 key stages: the yes man's dilemma, then the no revolution, mastering the rejection, defining the real deal, finding the decision maker, and we'll wrap it all up with the negotiator's game. All right, let's jump right in.
First up, the yes man's dilemma. Now, we're all taught that compromise is a good word, right? It's how we meet in the middle. But what if it's actually a trap? This is where we totally flip the script on that whole win-win idea. Think about it this way. Compromise is often just a polite way of saying that somebody lost. And if you're always the one caving, guess who that person is? For Bruh, this was his daily life. He was always losing, throwing in free floor mats, upgrading the sound system, anything to avoid a little friction, even if it meant his own commission just went up in smoke. So how does a guy like Baba even begin to break a lifelong habit like that? Well, it all starts with what we're calling the no revolution. And, kinda sadly, it took a really tough moment in his life to kick things off. After his dear Auntie Fi passed away, Boo inherited her library. And as he was going through her things, he found this one book tucked away on a shelf. The title? Start with No, by a negotiation coach named Jim Camp. And let me tell you, this book, it became the exact blueprint he needed to change, well, everything. And that book became his guide. Which brings us to our next step, mastering the rejection. This is where book gets into the real nitty-gritty, the core principles for taking back power in any conversation. Okay, so the first huge lesson. You have to stop acting needy. The second you seem desperate, you've already lost. It's like putting up a giant sign that says, "Hey, please take advantage of me." The shift is so subtle but so powerful. It's moving from thinking I need this client to I want this client. That one little word changes your entire posture.
And this is so important to get. Saying no is not about starting a fight. It's not about being a jerk. It's about taking control. A calm, reasoned no has this amazing effect. It makes everyone in the room stop and get serious. It clears the air. Remember, the goal isn't just to make friends, it's to get a good result.
Okay, so now that Boo's got this new power to say no, a new challenge pops up. How do you know what to say no to? And that's all about learning to define the real deal. You have to get good at filtering out what someone says they want from what they actually need.
Here's a perfect example. A regular customer comes to Bun, a car salesman, remember, and asks him to find a milling machine. I mean, what? The old Bun, he would have said sure, and then spent weeks on this wild goose chase. But the new Bun, he saw it for what it was, a total distraction from his main mission, selling cars. So he just politely said no. And it wasn't just about big, weird requests. It was also about digging deeper. So when a woman walked in and said, "I want a beautiful car," he didn't just point her to the shiniest convertible. Instead, he started asking these really smart, open-ended questions. Why do you need a car? That's interesting. What does beautiful actually mean to you? You see what he's doing? He's hunting for the real problem he needs to solve.
But here's the thing. You can learn to say no, you can ask all the right questions, but it's all completely pointless if you're not even talking to the person who can actually make the decision. And that was Buzz's next huge lesson. You have to find the real decision maker.
And I am sure we've all been in a situation like this. Look at this timeline. Boat spends hours with a client. They finally pick out the perfect car, they haggle, they agree on a price. He thinks he's done. And then the client says, "Great, let me just go get my wife." Turns out she has the final say. She takes one look at the car and hates it. Boom, negotiation over. All that time, all that energy, just gone. He's right back at square one.
So this brings us to the final and maybe the most important stage of Bus's transformation, the negotiator's game. This is where he learns to stop thinking of negotiation as this super stressful, high-stakes battle and starts seeing it as a game, a manageable process.
And the way you do that is by creating what's called a negotiation budget. It's a simple 3-step process. First, just take stock of your resources, your time, your money, and maybe most importantly, your emotional energy. Second, you decide up front how much of that you're willing to spend to get the deal done. And third, if the cost goes past your budget, the decision's already made. You walk away, you say no. Because at the end of the day, you can't control what the other person does. You can't make them say yes, you can't change their mind. The only thing you can ever control are your own words, your own actions, and your own decisions. So just focus on that. Play your side of the game as well as you can, and you might even start to enjoy the process.
And that's exactly what happened with Boo. He started saying no and no and no again. And you know what? He didn't turn into some aggressive jerk. He just became better, more effective, more respected, and finally, he found his balance.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about this week. What's the next automatic yes in your life